Well, hello there. Thank you for joining me for the latest edition of Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cook. On this week's show, a recap of the results from the provincial election held on August 17th. It was a big night for PC leader Tim Houston, whose party won a majority government, making them the next party to take office when MLAs are sworn in and cabinet posts are named this coming Tuesday. We're going to meet three of those MLAs right now. One of them is a senior MLA who just won his fourth term to the legislature. That's Inverness Representative Allan MacMaster. But we're also going to be talking to two of the new MLAs in the Tim Houston PC government. One of them is Greg Morrow, a former radio host who was elected over longtime Liberal Cabinet Minister Lloyd Hines in the riding of Guysborough-Tracadie. But we begin with the PC candidate for Richmond, who defeated three other candidates to take the seat on Tuesday evening, August the 17th. His name is Trevor Boudreau. Let's join Trevor in his native Louisdale for that conversation right now. We are pleased to welcome back to Telile 24/7 the newly elected PC MLA for Richmond, Trevor Boudreau. We know your dance card's getting busier, Trevor. Thank you for giving me some time here today.
Well, certainly I'm glad to be here and very excited for this opportunity. And anytime, Adam, you've been very gracious with me.
Well, I'm pleased to have you join me on a quiet morning in your native Louisdale. This is a far cry for what it was like for you on election night. Can you give me a sense on what the mood was like as you and your family were watching the results roll in on the evening of Tuesday, August the 17th?
Yeah, our team was well organized, and we had scrutineers in each of the polls, so we were getting the results maybe a little bit faster than some others, and so we seen these coming in, and we were very excited. We had some victories in some polls that maybe weren't Tory polls before, and so those were good signs early on. But certainly you're not convinced until the final tally. So there's that apprehension and a bit of nervousness and excitement in the room, and it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of supporters there and family members, and it was just it was a nice feeling all around.
What was the reaction of your wife Sarah and your kids when they realized you'd won?
They were pumped. I mean, the kids were dancing in the kitchen and hopping and it was very interesting for them. My son and I actually had to go for a walk a little bit in the afternoon. He was a bit nervous with it, and so him and I went for a walk. We were here in Louisdale and went for a walk and talked about what would happen if I lost or what would happen, with a win. And certainly it was actually nice for me too to kind of have that conversation with him. It brought me down a bit as well, and so I was much more relaxed going into it than I thought I would be. I remember my municipal elections and being a bit more nervous, and I think I'll give credit to Luke for helping me calm myself down a little bit in those conversations on that walk.
Now, speaking of special moments, Trevor, I noticed on your social media that you began election night with a very special ritual dating all the way back to your years as a goaltender for the IMDH hockey team. Can you tell us a bit about that?
You caught that, did you? I mean, look, I was a superstitious ice hockey goalie back when I was a kid. Still am. I'm not goaltending anymore, but certainly, it was just a tradition that I'd had, and it got a bit of a chuckle out of the people in the community and in the room that were there, and I was trying to ease their tensions as well. So I said, we're gonna do what I did to win in hockey, and let's see how well this works out for an election campaign. And I don't know. I'll give credit to Kraft Dinner, I guess, on my win. They'll get a little piece of it for sure.
Well, Trevor, now that we know what you ate on election night, let's ask a more serious but also shorter question. Why? That's a question people are asking in terms about why people chose you here in Richmond to be their MLA, but also why PC leader Tim Houston struck a chord with people all the way across Nova Scotia, scoring a majority win that surprised people in some corners. What do you think turned the tide for you and for him?
Well, certainly, I that month of campaigning, we got our voices heard. We had our message out there. It was clear. It was concise. We knew for a long time that healthcare was an issue. And I knew as a municipal councillor, right? As a council, we sat down and said we have a crisis in healthcare with physician recruitment. So that was a couple of years ago. So I've been running on this type of platform for a year now that healthcare is in crisis. But certainly, as the campaign has moved on, certainly, and I think I've talked to you about that before, there were some shifts and some concerns as well. And certainly, if you look at where we've done really well as a party, we've done well in the rural areas, and I think the rural Nova Scotia is looking at healthcare and access to care as a big priority, but also those other services that may be a bit more impactful in rural areas: internet, cell coverage, road maintenance. Those things were there for sure, and not to leave out housing, right? So I think we're seeing a housing shift here because of COVID-19 in rural Nova Scotia, and this was something that was brought up a lot. So we had our ducks in a row, and we understood where our strengths were, and we went with that.
I wanted to stick with the healthcare file for just a moment, Trevor, because obviously part of your municipal experience has been as the co-chair of the Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health Committee, taking a hard look at physician recruitment here in the Strait Area. And I know, obviously, that from a provincial perspective, there's lots to be dealt with in terms of healthcare, and the party will want to look at several different aspects of it. But can you give me a sense, if you have one or two priorities that you'd like to tackle first as an MLA when it comes to healthcare, what would those priorities be?
Yeah, I mean, healthcare isn't going to be solved overnight. It's not going to be solved in a week or two, and certainly, we are asking for patience on it a little bit. But certainly, getting rolling to make sure people have access to primary care, and so whether it's through our telehealth plan or creating a strategy to identify how to support attraction and retention of primary care practitioners like doctors and nurse practitioners. That's one place I'd like to focus. The other one I really think that we will put a large focus on, and you will see it with a new department, is mental health. And so making sure that we get on the right foot with that one is going to be key to the success of that department, and also for mental health in this province.
Trevor, while we're still speaking about healthcare, I also wanted to focus on long-term care, and I'd like you to share your thoughts about the election of another new PC MLA here in the Strait Area that has some expertise in this regard. Michelle Thompson, the new PC MLA for Antigonish, has been the CEO of the R.K. MacDonald Nursing Home in Antigonish for many years. Do you think having that kind of experience helps people like yourself and the PC party in general as you take the reins of power and try to address long-term care issues in Nova Scotia as well?
Look, we're very fortunate with having Michelle, on the team. Having someone with that breadth of knowledge in such an important file, long-term care, is going to serve us very well. It's going to serve the province very well. And if you look across the board, we have, and I've been saying this for a while. If you followed me on social media, you would have seen I was sharing profiles on some of the different candidates that we had running for the party, and we have a strong team. We do have a relatively new team, right? There's a group of us that are all new, but the party crew that have been there before have been reaching out to us. I mean, I had conversations with a number of different MLAs, who've been there and can share some of their experiences, and certainly I've been reached out to by some of us newbies. We're having conversations about how we can support each other, and Michelle and Greg and I, certainly with having Allan with us, we're very fortunate to have somebody who's been an MLA for quite some time, being able to support the three of us who are new to this role.
Along with Michelle Thompson in Antigonish, there's also been Greg Morrow elected for the Progressive Conservatives in Guysborough-Tracadie, and Allan MacMaster re-elected for the party in Inverness. So the Strait Area candidates for Tim Houston's team have done something that hasn't been done in the Strait Area since 1998, win all 4 local seats for the same party, and for a governing party as well. What does that mean to have that kind of support from your fellow Strait Area candidates as you get ready to be sworn in and take your seats in Province House?
It's great, right? Knowing that you have the support and the camaraderie that is going to go together with the 4 of us being there. We knew we had strong candidates here in the Strait Area, and some of our campaigning actually aligned with that. We kind of talked about a bit of it on radio about the strength of the candidates here in our area and how we're going to support the Strait Area, and we have to look in broad terms about the Strait Area, right? I am here representing Richmond County, but having the 4 of us that can sit together and say, hey, what's best for this region, and how do we move that forward as a region? This is a great opportunity, and hopefully we use that wisely.
Trevor, even before the job starts officially as MLA, when you're sworn in next week, you want to be sure that you're connecting and communicating with various individuals and groups throughout the riding, including Richmond Municipal Council. Have you started making those inroads and making those connections to ensure that everybody's voice is heard?
Yeah, it's a good thing my phone plan is the way it is, so I can have as many phone calls as I want. But certainly I've been reaching out, and they've been reaching out as well. So it's no surprise, having my experience as a municipal councillor, that I understand the importance of us working together. I've had a number of conversations already with the warden. I've had good conversations with the mayor of Port Hawkesbury as well, and councillors in both of those areas. We've reached out to each other, and even the MP who's now in his own election, Mike, and I have already had conversations, as have Fiona and I. And so this is important to make sure you're making those contacts and creating relationships that are going to serve the people of Richmond well. And certainly, I've had a number of contacts and discussions with community groups as well. So this isn't just about the politics of things; it's about also understanding the needs of the organizations and the nonprofits and the residents here. So I've had lots of phone conversations over the last 5 days, and I'm lucky I haven't lost my voice over the campaign or the last 5 days, so I'm doing all right.
On the flip side of that equation, Trevor, what are people saying to you as you're just going about and doing your day-to-day business? What has been the general reaction from people on the street, inside and outside of the riding?
Oh, certainly people are very supportive, and the congratulations are coming, whenever I'm in the communities here in Richmond already. And certainly they feel comfortable enough to start having conversations about some of the issues that they have. And again, some of the issues are big ticket issues, and some of them are personal issues that matter very much to the people themselves. And so it's trying to understand all of these issues and prioritize and make sure that they're being heard. And that's a commitment that I made early on, is I'm going to do my best to make sure I have conversations with everybody who needs to have them.
Trevor, obviously you've been a municipal politician long enough to know that once the campaign is over, arguably the real hard work begins. So can you give us a description of what you're experiencing at this exact moment as you're preparing to set up shop in Halifax, but also making sure that you have a specific, distinct presence right here in Richmond County?
Yeah, you are flying around early on in this process, so you're dealing with the Speaker's office on a number of issues with regard to housing, with regard to in apartments, or with regards to kind of just getting the legislative process up. You're dealing with the caucus in terms of setting up scheduled meetings, getting ready for swearing in, and then you're trying to figure out where are you putting your office, who are you going to have working in that office, and those are very important to me. Making sure I have the right person working with me to support the residents. I take that very seriously. That's being a strong constituency MLA is something that I'm very passionate about, and want to make sure regardless of what goes on over the next couple of weeks, that I have that opportunity to do that. And certainly we're all excited to know what cabinet brings and who's there and how that rolls. But I'm willing to serve in whatever capacity I can on that side as well.
As you're making these preparations, Trevor, I'm wondering what you feel was the most valuable lesson you learned from your 7.5 years as a Port Hawkesbury Town Councillor that you think will serve you the best as you prepare for a new life in provincial politics?
Well, I could talk about a lot of different experiences, but there's nothing more important than collaborating, and that's collaborating with your neighboring partners, municipal partners, or in this case, your provincial counterparts, but also with the other levels of government and with the organizations in your community. We were able to achieve a lot in Port Hawkesbury over those 8 years, especially the last 4, in terms of infrastructure and some of those big projects, and they're continuing that on right now. And so, but that all came through collaboration, and I feel like that's a strong attribute that I bring to the table. And so hopefully that skill set, along with some of my other skill sets, get used to the best of its ability.
Last question to you, Trevor. We're here on the waterfront in Lewisdale this morning. You've got the waters behind you. We're sitting at a spot that's been worked on so well by the Lewisdale Lions Club. Your children have danced and performed on the outdoor stage here, all of which leads me to ask you, what keeps you grounded, not just during the busyness of an election campaign, but what's keeping you grounded right now as you get ready to take your seat in provincial politics?
It's funny you say that, because I've contemplated this quite a bit, and you're a Rotarian. I'm a former Rotarian, and I learned a lot during my short time as a Rotarian, and the idea of service above self is really important to me. And I've always felt like if I see there's a need in the community that I can support or be a part of making that change, then I'm going to give that a go. And it's never been about accolades. I love seeing success. I love seeing businesses be successful. I love seeing our communities be successful. And it's a bit cliche, but I want my kids to feel like they can stay here and have their own families here and be around. And really that, those are the things I think about when I put my name forward for whatever it is. And this is a great opportunity for me, a great challenge for me. I've never shied away from a challenge, and certainly I understand some of that. I'm sure I'm going to learn more about that as I go along, but certainly, these are the attributes that keep me grounded. This isn't about me. It's about service. It's about providing, a bit of hope and a bit of opportunities for our area. So I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to enjoy every moment of it, and certainly looking forward to the challenges ahead.
Well, we know you haven't had all that many quiet moments since becoming the MLA elect, and we appreciate you spending one of your rare quiet moments with us here on the Lewisdale waterfront. Trevor Boudreau, thank you once again for joining us here on Telile 24/7 today.
Thank you for your time, Adam, and I really appreciate it.
Now, even if you're not familiar with the face of our next guest on Telile 24/7, you've likely heard his name, and you've very likely heard his voice at some point. He's Greg Morrow. For the past 13 years, he was the news director and morning news anchor for 101.5 The Hawk FM in Port Hawkesbury. But he took a leave of absence from that position in the spring after defeating 3 other hopefuls for the PC nomination in Guysborough-Tracadie. And when the dust settled on election night, Morrow had beaten longtime Liberal Cabinet Minister Lloyd Hines and will now take his seat as the new PC representative for the realigned riding of Guysborough-Tracadie. I caught up with Greg Morrow in Ald's Cove. Here's that conversation now. Joining us now in the shadow of Cape Porcupine in Ald's Cove, we're very happy to welcome MLA-elect for Guysborough-Tracadie, Greg Morrow, to the show. Greg, thank you for joining us today on Telile 24/7.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Well, we appreciate having you, especially since you're used to being on the other side of the microphone.
That's right.
And as a matter of fact, you're just coming from 101.5 The Hawk FM, where today was one of your last days at the station. Of course, you've been off during the campaign. You haven't been on the air. But has it been a big mental transition for you going from interviewing elected officials most of the time to actually being one and answering the questions now?
Yeah, very much so. It's been strange even going back this week after after 5 weeks away on the campaign trail just to go back and try and wrap up. But yeah, for sure, it's done a few interviews before and during and after the campaign, and it will take some getting used to. I'm not quite there yet, but it is different being on this side as opposed to where you are.
Well, good news, Greg. So far, so good with this interview.
Thank you.
On a serious note, though, Greg, I have been wondering for a while what made you decide to enter provincial politics and to take a run at a seat, but also, once you made that decision, what attracted you to Tim Houston and the Progressive Conservative Party of Nova Scotia? What made them a good fit?
Well, it's something that I've always wanted to do from a young age. In grade 6, I dressed up as Brian Mulrooney for Halloween. So, I've always had an interest in politics, and it just felt like the right time. I wanted to get in at an age where I'm still fairly young. I just turned 40 a couple months ago, and but not too young that I don't have any life experience. Plus, I have 2 girls. They're 13 and 11. They're at a good age now where they could handle me being away for a bit. So it just felt like this was a really good time. And as far as choosing the PC party, one thing that I found as a news director, or just a reporter in general, is you get news releases come in from parties all the time, from opposition parties, and they criticize. And that is the role of the opposition. But one thing that stuck out to me about Tim's releases is that he criticized as was his role as opposition leader, but he always offered a solution. And so it wasn't just something to say, okay, well, we don't like this. Instead, it's, we don't like this, but here's how we would fix it if we had the chance. So, and he's put forward a lot of those ideas during the campaign, and now we're excited that we're going to have a chance to put some of those solutions into action.
I don't think a lot of our viewers know as well, Greg, that your journey to political office actually began with a contested nomination. You weren't just acclaimed to the PC nomination for Guysborough-Tracadie. You had to defeat 3 other candidates looking to carry that blue banner. So can you tell me a little bit about what that day was like back in the spring?
That was, that was a lot of work in a short period of time, much like an election campaign. I think I filed my nomination papers, I believe it was the end of April, and it was the first weekend in June that the voting started. So everything went quick. We had to sell a lot of memberships in a short time. There was a lot of phone calls. Of course, we were in the third wave lockdown at that point, so you couldn't go door to door. You had to do everything by phone, and sometimes the phone number's disconnected now, or sometimes you can't get a hold of people because it's the weekend. But so there were some challenges there, but it was a lot of work. But it was a good first step to talk to people and find out some concerns early on to kind of get a good base for when the campaign actually started.
So once you got the nomination, you headed to the campaign trail, and it felt like there was a real shift both locally and provincially. Tim Houston's PCs were projected to possibly win a minority government. I don't know that anybody was really expecting a firm majority. When did you sense things were shifting both for you and for the party?
Yeah, the polls put us, I think, between 25 and 30 points behind before we got into the campaign, and just, I guess, goes to show what polls mean sometimes. I mean, we believed in the plan. I think all 55 candidates, Tim said we had a great slate of candidates all across the province, and I think in the end that showed too with, 31 elected MLAs, 31 new caucus members as part of a PC majority government. And yeah, look, our number one focus the whole time was healthcare, and we stuck to that. And I think as the campaign went on, people that were undecided, eventually they got the message and they understood that we were the party that was focused on healthcare. And healthcare is something that affects everybody. If not you directly, you have a family member who's affected, or a close friend, or friend of the family, or something like that. So I think, that was just our message, and we were quite clear that the problems facing our healthcare system aren't going to be fixed overnight, and it's not going to be cheap, but we're willing to invest because Nova Scotians are worth it.
Sticking with that theme, Greg, I know obviously you're one of 31 PC MLAs in this new government caucus that are all looking to see improvements on healthcare happening sooner and later. But by the same token, are there any day one or day two priorities following your swearing in next week that you'd like to see taken care of right away as the new MLA for Guysborough-Tracadie?
Well, I mean, obviously doctor recruitment is a big one, and even before I'm sworn in, we have a potential physician coming in to Guysborough tomorrow night rather, for a meet and greet. So I'm going to take part as the MLA elect. I'm not sworn in yet, but they invited me, and I'm willing to go and do whatever I can to help, because that's number one. We've got to get some doctors here, and we've got to get that ER close sign taken down from the Guysborough Memorial Hospital. So I think just, doctor recruitment is probably number one. We need more nurses, CCAs, all those things. Like, again, there's a lot of problems here to fix, and they're not going to be done overnight, but we're willing to work at it. And for me, locally, it's just the reason that I agreed to go tomorrow night is just so that I can go and let them know, hey, I'm here for whatever you need. You guys are the expert in recruitment. Tell me where you need me, what I can do, and I'm happy to help.
Greg, you're part of a rare moment in the political history of the Strait Area. Not since 1998 has one party won all 4 of the seats for this region. That happened in 1998 with the Liberals under Russell McClellan, and now you join Trevor Boudreau, Allan MacMaster, and Michelle Thompson as PC MLAs for the Strait. What does it mean to have all 4 of you going in under the same party like this and being able to deal with some of these same issues together?
You answered a trivia question for me, Adam, because on my way over here I was kind of racking my brain to think of when the last time that was, and my memory, without looking it up, only goes back to the 99 election. So obviously we had one in 98, and you answered the question, so that's when it was. So yeah, no, it's very special, and I think it's great for the Quad counties to have 4 MLAs on the government side of the House. And with Trevor and Michelle and Allan, we were constantly in constant communication during the campaign, text messages, calls, that sort of thing, just bouncing ideas off each other, just checking in to see how each other were doing. And now in the early stages, as we get ready to be sworn in, we're already talking about sharing resources, or common themes in the region, and how can we help move the region forward. So I think having all 4 of us on the government side is going to be a big boost to the area.
You're obviously elected to serve the people of Guysborough-Tracadie, Greg, but do you see any common threads between the 4 Strait Area ridings that you and your fellow PC colleagues might be able to tackle together, or at the very least, bring to the floor of Province House once the legislature starts sitting later this fall? What do you see as some of the common threads?
Yeah, well, you're right, Adam. I mean, it's we're 4 different ridings, but we're sort of one region in the Quad Counties, and the issues are the same, and obviously health is number one, as we talked about, but rural internet, rural cell service, those are big issues for people. We talked about the nomination meeting, and at that time, as I mentioned, it was during the third wave lockdown, and the number one issue I heard then was internet concerns, because kids were doing the homeschooling, parents were working from home, and that was by far the number one issue that I heard from people that I talked to. So that's a big concern, and roads as well. I traveled a lot of roads during the campaign, and a lot of people would like the roads fixed, and again, that's something that's not going to happen overnight, because there are a lot of problems. But as we mentioned during the campaign, we're doubling the rural roads budget from 20 million to 40 million, so there is some investment to be made there. And just looking behind us at the intersection in Alls Cove into Mulgrave, that the concerns with the tractor trailers turning into the big stop here, that's something that the town councillors and residents of Mulgrave and Alls Cove have been talking about for a long time and looking for action. And that's one of those things where, I told them, as I told many people, I can't promise anything right now because I'm not on the government side. But if and when I'm elected, I'm willing to get in there and look around and see what we can do and find out where things are at. And as I understand it, there is a draft report sitting on a table somewhere. So I guess that would be a good place to start. But, above all, it's just listening to those concerns and trying to help them and seeing how we can work together.
Now, not every political candidate, successful or otherwise, can say this, Greg, but you have a bit of a leg up on a lot of people who are elected to public office because you're familiar with a lot of the personalities and the issues throughout Guysborough County and through the eastern half of Antigonish County that makes up the other part of your riding. Through your 13 years as news director for the Hawk and going out to various municipal council and school board meetings, you have a bit of a sense on what's going on in different parts of the riding. So does that give you some confidence to know some of the faces and some of the issues that you'll be facing once you're sworn in as MLA?
Just on an interpersonal issue, it can be tough walking into a room and not knowing somebody and introducing yourself for the first time, and you don't know how things are going to go. So yeah, having those relationships is going to be a big help, just to have that part out of the way and be able to sit down and get to work. And yeah, like on a regular basis, I've covered Antigonish County and Guysborough Council meetings. I've attended Mulgrave meetings in the past, and I'm always aware, you mentioned as I'm a news director, so I'm always aware of what's going on in the different municipalities, even if I'm not there physically at the council meetings. But it is a big head start to know what their concerns are going in, and it will be interesting to sit down and talk to them on, again, being on the other side and finding out a little bit more.
So with that in mind, Greg, have those conversations started yet? You mentioned the doctor recruitment meeting that you're going to be attending this week. Have you started reaching out to people like Guysborough Warden Vernon Pitts or the Mayor of Mulgrave, Ron Chisholm, or any other local representatives?
Yeah, for sure. And, I actually had a chance to sit down with some councils or members of councils even before the election, just to kind of get a head start and then find out where they were on issues and sort of a little meet and greet. And but no, since then, yeah, I've had some just brief conversations with members of Mulgrave Town Council. They're interested in having me come in to speak to them, and I'm happy to do that and just get brought up to speed on where they are with certain issues. And as far as Guysborough goes, I had just a quick phone call with the CAO, Barry Carroll, in Guysborough yesterday, and I mentioned that I would be happy to come in and meet council, and he just said, we're certainly interested in that as well, but why don't you take your time, get your feet under you, and maybe we'll plan something for early fall sort of thing.
Greg, just a couple more questions about your individual victory in Guysborough-Tracadie before we wrap things up here. On election night, you scored a victory against a two-term Liberal MLA and high-ranking cabinet minister, Lloyd Hines, the outgoing Minister of Transportation and Active Transit. He hasn't lost many elections since he started running for municipal politics back in 1988. Some people are looking at you in the form of a giant killer for taking down Lloyd Hines. How do you react to that characterization, and what did it mean to you to score this victory over Hines?
Yeah, I leave terms like that for people like yourself, Adam, for other people. But look, anytime you want to win an election, it's going to take hard work. So We weren't really focused on the opponent so much. We just kind of dug our heels in and worked hard. Like, obviously, we knew Lloyd has done a lot for the area. He's been a public figure for many years, going back to his time as warden of the municipality of the district of Guysborough, and as a councillor, and even on the old school board before that. So Lloyd had a lot of name recognition, a lot of time in public office. But for us, it was just talking about what we can bring to the table, and that's a fresh voice, fresh perspectives. Sometimes it is good to have some new ideas in there, and that's basically it. We just focused on the positive and focused on what we could bring, and we just really wanted to work hard and do our best, because, like I said at the start, no matter what, if you want to win an election, it's never going to be easy, no matter the opponent.
You and I have talked a little bit about the importance of family and the importance of your own family in terms of supporting you throughout this campaign, and now supporting you as you get set to take public office and be sworn in next week, Greg. So in these next couple of minutes as we're winding down the interview, why don't you tell me a little bit about how much your family's meant to you and how they reacted to your election win?
Yeah, the election night was sort of funny, because we were watching and listening for the results to come on, and when it was finally, my wife Sue and girls Kate and Lucy, they kind of stuck beside me all night. And then, for whatever reason, when the results were actually announced, or the race was called, I guess, in Guysborough-Tracadie, they were in another room. So I went running to try and find them, to give them a hug, and they were running the opposite way to find me. So that was fine. But no, the whole thing with the family, so many people have told me you can't do it without your family behind you, and that's been true. They've been amazing. I think they realize that this has been a dream of mine for a long time, and they did whatever they were willing to do. I think back to the nomination, you asked about that earlier, and the work that went into it. One Sunday afternoon of the long weekend in May, we stuffed 350 envelopes, and it was, that was me, my wife, and the two girls sitting around the kitchen table doing that. There wasn't all these volunteers or these workers to help. It was them, and they would do a job like that for 6 or 7 hours, and then say, what else can we do to help? It's stuff like how I missed soccer and baseball games for the month of the campaign, and I pride myself on being a dad who doesn't miss those things. I like to be involved. I like to coach them if I can, but I like to be there, and I like to watch and support them. And it wasn't just that they understood that I wasn't there. They encouraged me. They said, I remember there was one night I was planning to try and get to a game in the evening, and they said, don't worry about rushing home. Stay out and do what you need to do. We'll be fine. So it's stuff like that. So my success is their success, and I hope they're proud of me, because that's my number one goal, is to make my wife and kids proud. So at the end of the day, if that's what we've done, we've done pretty well. And I said on election night, when I talked to the group at the house, I said when we started out, this was about me fulfilling a dream, but it quickly became a lesson to my girls that if you put your mind to something, dig your heels in, and work really hard, surround yourself with good people, 9 times out of 10 you will be successful. And you believe in yourself and those sorts of things. So, and not every time, obviously, it doesn't always work out, but if you do those things and you do them the right way, chances are you'll be successful. So I hope that I maybe gave them a lesson in hard work, and they worked hard as well. So I can't say enough about the support I've gotten from all 3 of my girls.
With that in mind, I imagine you consider it as important to represent your family as it is to represent the people of Guysborough County and eastern Antigonish County.
I hope so, yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground in a short time, as I suspected we would. Greg, is there anything else you'd like to add just before we wrap all this up?
No, just that, I appreciate, all the conversations I had on the doorsteps. We traveled to every community in the riding. We got to almost every doorstep. Some people weren't home. It is summertime, and that's understandable. But, I told people to reach out with concerns, and they are already, which is great. And, it's just been a whirlwind since the election on the 17th. And there's a lot of moving parts. We've got you get a constituency office set up. I've got employees to hire. I've got to find a temporary place in Halifax. So there's lots of stuff on my plate, and I am just asking people to be a little patient as I get my feet under me, and I'll get sworn in on Monday, and hopefully we'll be ready to get to work.
And so Greg Morrow's new adventure begins in a huge riding, but you knew that going in. But we appreciate you taking some time for us today. Thanks so much, Greg, for joining me here today on Telile 24/7.
Thanks again for having me, Adam, and what a thrill it is to be here on Telile 24/7.
When Premier-designate Tim Houston makes cabinet selections that will be sworn in this coming Tuesday, you would have to think that Allan MacMaster's name would be in the mix. MacMaster won his 4th consecutive term in office on Tuesday, August the 17th. He's been elected to the riding of Inverness, which now takes in the town of Port Hawkesbury. I went a little farther up Route 19 to catch up with Allan MacMaster a few days ago, so here's our conversation about what the upcoming term might look like for him as we sat together in the Judic section of the Cayley Coastal Trail. Take a look.
We are here in Judic with newly re-elected Inverness MLA Allan MacMaster. Allan, thank you very much for joining me again for Telile 24/7.
Nice to be with you, Adam.
Obviously, we'd like to begin on election night, Allan, and I wanted to get a sense from you if you knew at any point of the night that things were shifting your way, not just as an MLA, but also as an MLA that was about to join a majority government for the PC caucus.
Well, it was interesting. Our numbers for Inverness were a little slow coming in. And so the first thing I guess I noticed before I even got to see my own status was that across the province we were looking at that moment about 30 seats. And I walked into the waterfront centre in Waikagama where we were having a little gathering, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought we had the momentum going into the election day. And I did think that we might get a minority government, but when I saw 30 seats on the screen, I was very happy and pleasantly surprised. And when I saw the numbers for Inverness, it had confirmed for me what I had been feeling out on the campaign trail, that I would be okay. And so it was a great night, I'll have to say.
So you're now entering your 4th term as an MLA for Inverness. When you were first elected in a by-election in 2009, your margin of victory was 50 votes. Now you're taking over 50% of the vote in the most recent election. What does it feel like to have the continued support of the people of Inverness County and Port Hawkesbury?
Well, it's certainly nice, and I can tell you there have been campaigns I've been involved with. I think particularly my second campaign, because I had been elected once, and you never really know if people really did like your representation. And I remember that was kind of a stressful campaign, and the polls weren't going our way. So I know what that's like too. I guess I would say about this campaign, I appreciated feeling the support I was hearing, but you don't take it for granted. And there's always, no matter how well you do, you also realize there's a lot of people who are not voting for you. And there could be many reasons for that. But, after Election Day, I'm here to work for everybody.
You mentioned that you felt like you and your party had the momentum in the last days of the campaign, and I'm wondering if you feel like there were one or two things that both Mr. Houston, as your party leader, was offering, but also that you and the party were offering overall, that swung the momentum and secured a majority win, not just for you in Inverness, but all across the province.
I think Premier-designate Houston was putting ideas on the table, and he was very focused on health care. And I think people want solutions for healthcare. So I think that played a large part in it. I also think Premier-designate Houston carries a strong personality, and I think people were drawn to that as well, as feeling that he may be somebody who can take charge and make the changes we need to see to make things better in things like healthcare and in other matters as well.
Obviously, in your previous terms as MLA, you are already familiar with the issues that face the people of Inverness County and the town of Port Hawkesbury, which is now in the Inverness riding. But I'm just wondering, are there any day one or day two priorities that you might have once you are sworn in next week, not just as the Inverness MLA, but also as an Inverness MLA that's part of a PC governing caucus focused on healthcare? Any one or two issues stand out for you?
Well, when it comes to healthcare, I would have to say it has to be overall, because everything in the healthcare system fits together. We've made a commitment to create more nursing home beds, and I think there is a great need for that. As we know, many people who are going into nursing homes now, they need significant levels of care. It didn't used to be that way. But today, when people are going to the nursing home, they really do need nursing care. And families are at the point where they're long past the point, oftentimes, in their ability to care for their loved ones. So, but creating more nursing home beds should help with the situation we're seeing with ambulances. because we're seeing paramedics arriving at hospitals unable to hand over patients because maybe there's not enough RNs on staff to be able to take on new patients at that moment. And maybe it's because there are acute care beds in the hospital being taken up by people who should be in nursing home beds. So it all fits together. So we have to take an overall look at healthcare, and because all of these pieces fit together, and no matter at what stage in life you are, for what reason you are sick or ill or in an accident, you need to have, or if it's mental health issues, you need to have responsive care in the moment you need it. And so we'll be doing our best to try to make things better.
You were speaking of long-term care just a moment ago, Allan, and I wanted to ask if it heartens you to know that one of your new PC caucus colleagues going to Province House with this majority government, Michelle Thompson, the new MLA elect for Antigonish, has so many years' experience with long-term care as the longtime CEO of the R.K. MacDonald Nursing Home in Antigonish. Do you think that experience is going to bring a much-needed voice to the PC government caucus in terms of dealing with long-term care?
Absolutely. We'll be in rooms making decisions about things like health care. It's important to get information, and there's a lot of good information that can come from the Department of Health and the people who work there. But you can never replace the practical knowledge that somebody like Michelle Thompson will have after working so many years in healthcare and seeing it herself on a daily basis. So having that knowledge and those insights will really help us to hopefully do a better job in managing the healthcare system.
Along with Michelle Thompson, of course, the PCs have elected Trevor Boudreau in Richmond and Greg Morrow in Guysborough-Tracadie. This is the first time since 1998 that all 4 Strait Area seats have been won by the same party, Allan. So I just wonder, does that bring you some optimism and some hope for the future of the region as the 4 of you go in together representing this area in the government caucus?
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and my hope is that it'll mean good things for the Strait Area. We're certainly going to be on the same page, I would think, in most cases, and I think that's going to be helpful in moving things along, and hopefully there'll be efficiencies with that. I'm sure each of us will be doing what we can to help out our own areas, but there are a lot of things that we can do to help each other in the Strait Area, and we should be focused on those things as well.
Now, obviously, you'll have issues from your own ridings, but other than healthcare, which we've already talked about, what do you think are some of the commonalities within the Strait Area that affect all 4 of these ridings that you and your colleagues think you can push for as you get sworn in next week?
Well, I can think of one piece of infrastructure that's within the constituency of Inverness, but it certainly affects people traveling between the in the Strait Area, between the Quad counties, and certainly from Newfoundland to visitors coming from just about anywhere, and that's the rotary, which will become a roundabout, or projected to become a roundabout, as you enter Cape Breton Island. So that is an important piece of infrastructure, and I know there's a plan right now. I'm not sure if it's good as it can be. I think the people who designed it did what they could with the parameters they were given, the budget they were given, and so on. But that's something that I think we should take another look at, because it is an important piece of infrastructure. It needs to be the right piece of infrastructure, and I would hope that it will address the traffic issues that we see so often around the Cancel Causeway when boats are moving through the locks. And it's important that people who are staying on the island, that they're not impacted, that they can carry on to where they're going. And that, of course, helps anybody that's crossing the causeway, because that means there's less traffic tied up waiting for the boats to cross. And when traffic resumes moving, they can get to where they need to go more quickly. So that's one example.
Allan, staying on that topic for just a moment, what are your thoughts about the concept of a roundabout to replace the Port Hastings Rotary? Do you think that should be the way we go forward? Would you like to see the discussion reopened? What are you thinking at this point?
Well, I think roundabouts are effective, and you certainly see them. I mean, you see them in cities around the world where there's massive amounts of traffic, and they certainly move traffic well. So there are other options. You could look at an overpass there. I know in the past they looked at that. They had a plan for an overpass. There's pluses and minuses to each of those designs. With an overpass, it might not be as pleasing to the eye to come onto the island. There may be less of an impact on people in terms of they're in Cape Breton Island now. It might look like a bunch of concrete and steel construction where it's not very pleasing to the eye, whereas with a roundabout, I think you have more opportunity to create a nicer entrance to Cape Breton Island. In terms of their effectiveness, with an overpass, you'd have very little issue with people wanting to stay on island and wanting to keep moving if there's a boat going through the locks. However, with a roundabout, if you have it set up with vehicles coming into the roundabout, you may be able to keep it free for people who want to stay on the island, and keep people who are wanting to go across the causeway, keep them from entering the roundabout. So I think both designs can be as effective in terms of moving traffic, but it would also be a good question to hear an answer from somebody who is an expert in traffic and safety on highways.
Allan, I'd like to get some perspective from you as to how you're mentally preparing to shift from being an opposition MLA to being a government MLA. Obviously, the past 12 years haven't simply been about you saying no to things. You've worked proactively with individuals and community groups here to try to get some positive development for the riding of Inverness. But is your mindset shifting very much now that you're getting ready to sit not only in a government caucus, but in a majority government caucus?
Well, I think the biggest change is when you're part of a government that's formed, you are sitting around the table having input on the decisions. But it also carries the responsibility and the reality that decisions are usually arrived at by way of consensus. So anything that I would say, if I'm especially if part of the cabinet, but as being a government MLA, part of the government that has just been formed after election night, you are responsible to your colleagues, and you are part of a team. And with any team, you need to have cohesiveness. You need to stick together. You need to come to decisions, find ways to collaborate, and hopefully come there in agreement together. And that is the biggest difference between being an opposition MLA and a government MLA. In opposition, you're given a little more freedom, and some people think, well, there's not much point in being on the opposition side, but you can speak very freely when you're in opposition, and that's an asset to the public, and that's the whole reason why we have the democracy we do, is so that, yes, you have members who are part of the government who make decisions, but you also have members that hold them accountable, because not everybody agrees with the government all the time. And that doesn't matter if it's the government that came before us or the government that I'll be part of. And I value the opposition. I've been in it long enough. I've been in opposition for 12 years. It's an important role, and it serves the public. So I respect democracy, and I know under the last government we saw a lot of what I would say was disrespect for democracy. The legislature didn't even sit for an entire year, whereas in other parts of the country, every other province and our parliament in Ottawa sat from between roughly 25 days and about 82 days. We sat for one day, and it lasted 10 minutes, and the business at hand was to shut the legislature down. So that's not democracy, and that's not responsible government. I think of the Public Accounts Committee as well. The mandate was changed, not in the legislature, because they didn't have the numbers to change it there, but they changed it at the committee level where they had the majority, and they reduced its effectiveness. And that's not there to serve the government, it's there to serve the people, and so is the legislature. And I believe that just as much as I did in opposition. I believe that, if I'm part of this government now.
Your leader, the Premier-designate Mr. Houston, has talked about having more openness and transparency in that regard, particularly in the case of the committee structures for the legislature committees and trying to end a monopoly of government members on each of these committees and on government members setting the agenda for these committees. How do you feel about that?
I think what he was saying was, in terms of the mandate for the Public Accounts Committee, was leaving the members to choose the topics instead of restricting it to Auditor General reports, which was a very clever thing the government did. It kept any hot issues of the day off the table, so they couldn't be discussed. The only issues you could discuss would be from 2 or 3 year old Auditor General reports. And so they may have been addressed at that point by the government, but there was no ability to talk about current issues. And it was a clever thing the government did, but it was done to serve themselves and not to serve the public.
Allan, as we're winding down our time on the Cayley Coastal Trail in Judique here today, I wanted to ask you about what first inspired you to run for office. What led you to make that choice? There was a by-election in 2009 called shortly after the MLA at the time, ex-Premier Rodney MacDonald, had stepped down following his government's election defeat. And you once told me that you didn't think right away that you wanted to run for that riding. So, what did that campaign teach you, and what lessons have followed you to this day?
Well, I think I remember when at first I was saying no to it. And some time went by, and the nomination date was getting very close. And my father was seriously ill at the time. And I felt almost guilty to even be considering it at that point, because I knew it would be a distraction at a time when I was caring about my father. And however, I remember one of my first cousins said something to me, and I remember being encouraged, and I thought, you know what, maybe I should just do this. Timing is everything in politics. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. And as soon as I did, it's like my father got a lift from it. Because he lived for another good 5 years after that. And I think he wanted to see what was going to happen. I think he wanted to see if I was going to win. And so I think it proved to be a good decision for both of us.
He saw you win twice.
Yeah, he did. That's right. And And I remember, election night, he was home by that point, and I remember him laughing as I was jumping up and down because I won on the last poll of the night. The poll in Cregnish came in, and I did very well in it, and it pushed me over the top. And so it was probably about it would be like a sudden death overtime win in hockey, and it was very exciting. And what did I learn from it all? I remember that first campaign, I was just very positive, and always felt I could win until almost the end, when I was behind by I think it was about 150 votes, and there was just a few polls left, and I thought, I know statistics and math. Usually, if there's something that's falling out after so many votes have been cast, it's likely to continue the same way. But you have to look also in politics at specific polls, and sometimes you do very well in some than others, and that's what it turned out. That's how it turned out for me in this case. And but I think after that, winning by so few votes, it makes you appreciate it even more, and you don't take things for granted. And you realize that it's while it's nice to win on election night, it's really not about you. It might be in that moment for you because you've worked hard for weeks at it, and you're hoping to win. But you realize that you're there to serve the public, and it's a privilege, and it's one I continue to take seriously, and I want to do a good job for people, because someday I'll leave politics, and I want to leave with people feeling good about me, and for me to do that, I always have to stay focused on the people I'm here to represent.
You were talking about your father just a moment ago, and of course he is the legendary fiddler Buddy MacMaster, who passed away in 2014. Some of our viewers might not know that, but I wanted to ask you a little more about family, because serving as the MLA for the past 12 years, and now, of course, serving as a government MLA, means that they have to get used to the idea of you being away for quite a while, and yet they're still supporting you through these election runs. So can you tell me a bit about how you would explain to your children in particular what Dad does and why it's important?
Well, the boys are 13 and 15, and they've been great throughout the campaign. They've been a big help to their mom, and that's been wonderful to have their support. And I know they were cheering for me on election night. The other children are very young, so it's sort of a different experience there for each. The girls are, well, the little guy is just 5 months, so he's just getting onto things now. We're starting to see him noticing things, but for the girls, I would explain that I was going campaigning, so they learned that word, and they learn some of the names of communities. Like they'd be asking me if I'm going campaigning in Cheticamp. And but they, and even today when I was coming to meet with you for the interview here, I was telling them that I'm not going campaigning because they didn't really like it because I was away for long periods of time each day. So now they know the campaigning is over, or at least I think they do. So it's amazing what little ones will understand. And one thing I learned too is with young children, it's important that when you say goodbye, that they know you're coming back, and not to sneak out of the house. I used to do that a little bit because I wouldn't want to get them upset. But that's one thing I learned. It's easier on them if they kind of know what to expect, and even at the age of 3, I think it helps to do that. And so I think I'm hoping they'll understand and not be worried when I'm away from home. And I probably will be away from home a little more now, but that'll make our times together that much more valued.
Well, Allan, I knew that your time was not always your own when you were an opposition MLA. I imagine that will accelerate now that you're part of a government caucus. So I want to thank you for giving us some time here on Telile 24/7 today. Thank you so much for speaking to me.
Thank you very much, Adam.
Allan MacMaster is the newly re-elected PC MLA for Inverness. He'll be sworn in as a member of the PC Government Caucus this coming Tuesday morning. Stay tuned for more Telile 24/7 in just a moment.
And even though we're having a serious discussion about priorities for the upcoming legislature session under the new PC government, I couldn't resist asking a couple of our interview guests this week to play our Fast Five game. Trevor Boudreau has already played it during the election campaign, but this was the first time for both Greg Morrow and Allan MacMaster, so let's see what answers they came up with to our Telile 24/7 Fast Five questions. And we're pleased to be joined by the new MLA for Guysborough-Tracadie to play the Telile 24/7 Fast Five. Greg Morrow is here. Greg, are you ready?
Oh, I'm a little nervous, but yeah, let's go.
There's nothing to be nervous about. It's like a final exam all about you, so there's no way you can fail. You're going to be all right. Okay, first question. Coke, Pepsi, or neither?
Coke.
There we are. Easy answer. Next, you can be any animal. What animal do you want to be?
That's a tough one. Dog, I guess. Dog. Yeah.
All right. Any breed of dog?
Well, we have a chocolate lab. Labs are nice dogs, so I guess I would be a lab.
All right. There we are. Nicely done. You can watch any movie that you've already seen 5 times and would gladly watch 50 more. What is that movie?
Jerry Maguire. Show me the money.
He'll be asking that to the Minister of Finance once everybody's sworn in. Yes. Next question. If you could be a forest or a tree, which one would you be?
I guess a forest. I don't think I really understand that question.
Not all of the questions can be understood, but don't worry. We'll go with forest to meet our new Minister of Natural Resources. It's going to work out great. And wrapping things up on the Fast Five, what is your favorite sandwich? When you're home alone, when you've got a bit of an appointment to get to, what's your favorite sandwich?
Well, on the campaign trail, I ate a lot of chicken salad sandwiches, so it would probably be that. And I don't make them, so.
Okay. Chicken salad sandwiches for Greg Morrow. Make sure that you have them for him the next time you meet him. It'll work out just fine. See, that was easy. Greg, thanks for playing the Fast Five with us.
Not too bad. Thank you, Adam.
All right. Greg Morrow, the new MLA for Guysborough-Tracadie, playing the Fast Five on Telile 24/7. We're very pleased to have the MLA for Inverness, Allan MacMaster, join us to play Telile 24/7's ever-popular game, the Fast Five. Allan, are you ready to play?
I'm ready.
All right, well, let's do this right off the bat. Coke, Pepsi, or neither?
Orange Crush.
Orange Crush. You are the first to say Orange Crush. Congratulations. I think they should send you a case of Orange Crush. That's marvelous. All right. Habs, Leafs, or neither?
Neither.
Neither.
It's a safe answer. There's a lot of both fans out there.
Spoken like a politician, ladies and gentlemen. Well done. Well done. All right. You can be any animal. What could you be?
A horse.
Why a horse?
They're nice, they're fast, and they're kind animals.
And they're very popular in Inverness County, too, as well.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are. We'll see you at the raceway in a couple of weeks' time. Yes. All right. You can watch one TV show if you have a whole week off. What is that TV show?
Well, you know what? This one might bring some memories back. One show that my wife and I were enjoying was Rhoda.
The Mary Tyler Moore spinoff.
That's right.
Oh, my goodness.
The first couple of seasons, it kind of became a little bit, it wasn't as fun after she and Joe split up, but that was a good show.
All right. Right. Mabu, this is your last chance. There we are. Or anything that begins with an M in Inverness County, yes. And the last question, would you rather be a forest or a tree?
A forest.
You would rather be a forest, which is appropriate since we're out here in the forest. Why a forest, just out of curiosity?
There's more variety. You're home to all kinds of different wildlife, and you're kind of a bigger picture.
That's one of the best answers I've gotten to any question in the Fast Five. Thank you very much, Allan, for playing.
Okay, thanks, Adam.
All right, Allan MacMaster is the latest victim contestant on the Fast Five on Telile 24/7. Thank you very much for tuning in to Telile 24/7 this week. A big thank you to my guests, Allan MacMaster, Greg Morrow, and Trevor Boudreau, and thank you to each and every one of the candidates, party workers, and others that I spoke to over the course of this election campaign. We promise to bring you the same diligence for Telile 24/7's coverage of the federal election campaign, and you'll start seeing candidates on our show very soon. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you for tuning in this week, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon for our next edition of Telile 24/7. Talk to you then.